Thanks for the heads up and hello, everybody. Wow, it's really nice to see some heads there, some backs of heads in the hall, and just feel like I'm right there with you, sitting in between those beautiful statues and gorgeous mountain stream. What a refuge in this kind of crazy and a little bit mad, wild world that's going on. And, when I was thinking about tonight's topic, Dharma for stress and anxiety, um, I didn't know that John was going to be doing a householder retreat on the kilesas, or the sort of the three uh, the three poisons, or sort of universal challenges that we all deal with, and that can be really excruciating. And so it's interesting. I had no idea that this would kind of dovetail in a way with that offering. So maybe some of you participated in that. I last week I just made it Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and was really there just for the Calaises. I didn't hear how John went along and ended things. I was just there for the poison. And it can kind of seem like, though, that we're just here for the poison. These are really trying times with just incredible, wars and upheaval. It's like kind of the fabric of our world almost seems disjointed, it can feel like. And the polarity and, you know, maybe people that we love and care about seeing uh, current events and situations, politics, in ways that we find baffling and harmful. It's just trying times, and so it feels like, in some ways, that I'm a bit of a New York Times junkie, and so I pull it open almost with a little sense of trepidation, because a lot of times I'll get a shock out of it, and these ongoing shocks, each one of them is kind of stressful. And I know that, the pace of my life, lately especially, has been at a busier and less sustainable pace than I'd like. A lot of transition happening, a lot of movement and sort of added activity, on top of, a world that is boiling. And so, as we have stressful moments, if we keep adding stressful moment after stressful moment, it sort of lifts our set point up to kind of being in fight or flight on an ongoing basis. It sort of trains ourselves and our nervous system to stay in this elevated state. And that can be a precursor to, imbalanced, ongoing, sort of chronic anxiety. So what I wanted to do tonight is I wanted to explore ways in which the Dharma can help us really just come back home, settle our energies, um, and reflect on things that, even in the midst of challenging times, or this busyness, these cell phones that, never seem to give us a restful moment, that we have some kind of a home base, that we have some way that we can count on, and that has a sincerity to it, that nurtures and feeds us. And so, two aspects of the Dharma, as soon as I thought of that, really came just front and center. And the first one was the Brahma Viharas, or the Four Noble Abodes of the Heart. It's kind of like they're qualities that, you know this heart mind of ours already has, but they're not aggressive, or intrusive, and they're oftentimes a little bit calmer. And so we have a tendency to look over them, and especially when we're getting, jangled on an ongoing basis, we lose sight of them. And the other thing that I was thinking, and I feel like these two go hand in hand, the other aspect that I was thinking is just the Eightfold Noble Path of practice and kind of lifestyle and understanding that that leads us to deeper realms of peace and well-being, but also of viewing our circumstances, viewing this situation, the fabric of our reality from a different perspective that has inherent in it the possibility of complete and total freedom. So, anyways, I just want you to, as we kind of embrace these practices of meeting stress and anxiety, the first thing I want you to do is just to place a little bit of attention on the soles of your feet, just feeling the bottoms of your feet. Maybe you're sitting on a cushion and you're cross-legged, or maybe you're in a chair and your feet are touching the floor. Whether the feet are touching the floor or not, just what does it feel? Do you feel any warmth or coolness at the bottoms of your feet? Do you feel if they're touching something, is it soft or more firm or hard? Is there any sense of tingling or vibration or aliveness at the soles of your feet? And with whatever you're sensing there, as we bring the attention down to what typically is the lowest part of our bodies, it helps the nervous system just settle in throughout the body. And to assist a sense of settling and grounding, you can even imagine, maybe you just close your eyes for a moment and imagine that extending down from the soles of your feet, there's sort of like energetic roots or shafts of light or something extending down through the building you're in, deep, deep down into Mother Earth, no boundary, just rooting and grounding you. And just as you feel your body, noticing if this attention on the soles of your feet extending down, if that just has sort of a calming effect. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. No right or wrong. Welcome to open your eyes again. It just, when we get activated, the attention in our nervous systems jumps upward and often engages the thinking process. So touching in just with the soles of our feet and our groundedness, that we are in relationship to an earth that we never had to ask to hold us, but it always did. And it's a constant. It's an absolute for us. So another thing that I find really helpful in moments of this being elevated, the energy, is as we breathe to really, take the breath in and then allow the out breath to be kind of smooth and as long as possible, to have the out breath be longer than the in breath. So breathing in and out. As we breathe out, our heart rates slow down just a little bit. And when we breathe in, they speed up a little bit. So letting the out breath be a little longer than the in breath, or a lot longer, can be very just calming and soothing we're sort of tapping into a part of our nervous systems that is the part that's wired to help us rest and connect with each other, to let go of the burden of vigilance or even hypervigilance. Maybe you can try this just a couple of times. Breathe in. You're welcome to do that as this talk continues, if that feels supportive to you. I find that it's something that when I get in a rhythm of it, it just sort of begins to do itself, because there's something about it that feels good. It feels easeful to breathe in that way, and there's not a lot of force or mental action on that. So I wanted to offer you a couple of things that just are, kind of, they call them hacks, stress hacks, to help you to get a little bit of balance and ground. And then, that makes the attention available to things that can be a little bit more subtle. So now I'm going to offer to you, just take a hand, right or left hand, and just place that on your heart. And notice, for some people, placing their hands on their hearts might not feel all that great. If it doesn't feel great, no worries. You can just bring it back to your lap. But if it does feel good, just do you feel a sense of warmth and maybe energy from your hand moving into your chest area? Is there a sense of that your heart is being held, that a sense of compassion towards yourself? In the Brahma Viharas, we call this quality of the heart karuna. And just this acknowledgement, as I put my hand on my heart, it's just this, maybe I don't have the answer, but I care about myself. I care about any dis-ease, lack of ease that I feel, concern or sorrow. And with this simple gesture of just placing my hand on my heart, I care. There's almost this enfolding feeling, this bringing things back to the point of caring within us. You can even take your hand and bring it up to the top of your sternum, the base of your throat, and just bring it down gently. I care how I feel. May any suffering that I'm experiencing be eased. May I be well. And as we do this in sort of, just kind of a gentle caress of this area, it actually stimulates the part of the nervous system that's involved in registering safety and connecting, releases some helpful hormones. This is always, I find myself doing this just now because I've been practicing it for so long. I find myself doing it whenever I feel a little bit elevated, concerned. As we touch in with our hearts, though, our hearts have this quality of connecting. So if we then imagine that we're seeing a dear friend, someone we care about, maybe a mentor or a benefactor that, has put the wind in our sails. When we see somebody like that, there's a gladness of the heart, and the heart opens up, and there's a sense sort of a radiance, a shining out. And this is kind of this sense of loving kindness, or I like the word friendliness. It's so beautiful that when we, can touch into our heart space, when we can care for ourselves, then we have this uh, inclusive, connecting heart available to meet with kindness our moments. And, some of those moments, they don't have to all be friends. Can we meet challenging moments with a sense of kindness? Does that help us meet stress in difficult times? And maybe, you know, there's this sense of joy that we might be able to feel, a sort of a sense of the heart welling up, you know, with this capacity to be happy that we're here. When we're happy for ourselves, it's really gratitude. When we're happy for others, it's called sympathetic joy. It's also known as mudita. By the way, the last one, loving kindness, is known as metta. Love that word, metta. It's a friendly word. And mudita, I'm experiencing mudita, joy. It's, it's really important for us to give ourselves a joy break in the middle of all the craziness that goes on around us. One of the things I know, I did this in the Dharma talk one time. I piped in videos from YouTube of laughing babies. Like you hold up a sheet of paper in front of a baby and you tear the sheet of paper and the baby just laughs from their just deepest inside. And for me, I just can't help it. That brings a smile and a sense of joy to my system. And it's okay to take a joy bath, to find something to watch, a lighthearted comedy. Um, it's important to vitamin J. Give yourself some joy. And uh, and then the last one of these, it's such a beautiful aspect, uh, equanimity, or upekkha. Upekkha. I feel almost when I think of equanimity, or when I'm feeling equanimity, it's almost like this life ring extending out from the heart around me, and in front, to the sides, and in back of me. And it's just kind of maintaining a sort of sense of stability and balance in the waves of experience. So, a reflection for equanimity is that things are as they are, even though we wish that they might be different. It's sort of a disclaimer to say that unfortunately, that's kind of how this place was designed. This realm is that it's meant to be kind of hard. It's meant to be stressful and get old, and there's, if we're lucky, um, there's being sick. There's the sadness and the travails, and there's also the joys and the ecstasies and the love and all of this. And equanimity is like, yes, there are all these things, and this sense of openness and balance, this sense of receptivity in space. And one thing I'm going to invite you to do is just to, wherever you are, whether it's at home or in the beautiful meditation hall, just let your eyes move sort of aimlessly around in your environment and take in and register the items that are in your environment. Some of them may be very pleasing, some of them more pleasing than others. Maybe if there's a pile of messy papers, it's unpleasing. Or somebody with a different sense of taste than you put something up that you're not wild about, but you're just allowing your eyes to gently move around the space and notice the objects in it. Now, there's actually something that when we locate ourselves and when we acknowledge our surroundings, there's something that's kind of, soothing about that. But now, as you kind of, eyes still wandering aimlessly, taking in the objects, keeping a sense of attention on how your body feels, the energy in your body. And then now I'm going to invite you to shift the focus of your attention away from the objects and just simply register the space, the openness in which those objects are occurring, registering the volume in a way, and knowing that even though there's walls, the walls take up space. There's space beyond the walls, there's space going down into the ground. There's limitless, infinite space moving out beyond the realms of our earth, out to the edges of the galaxy, of our universe. We are connected with boundless space. And notice if that has a shift. Is there something about connecting simply with openness that just feels good, that feels nourishing? Maybe it feels a little disorienting or too out there, but it's an offering. This space that includes and holds everything, that opens and receives everything, is like this limitless equanimity that is a natural part of our hearts and the basic nature of our heart minds. How lovely and pure and still that openness. And so we cultivate these qualities, and really also, it's not even that we're cultivating these qualities, but we're noticing them as they arise in our practice. Moments of friendliness, moments of compassion, moments of joy, moments of balance and peace and acceptance. And as we notice those actually become a part of the path of our practice. And this is where we get into the Eightfold Noble Path, that is the fourth truth of the Four Noble Truths. And the Eightfold Noble Path starts with the first aspect of it is having, oftentimes it's offered as a right view, or I prefer a wise view, and I even prefer a little bit more the term a harmonious view, a harmonious perspective, maybe is a better word than view, a harmonious perspective of, kind of what's going on. And the word Dharma actually means, in its most basic and literal sense, it literally means the way things are. So when we teach the Dharma, when we study the Dharma, we're exploring how things are, the nature of things in their truth. And so when our perspective is aligned with how things are, it's in harmony, it is harmonious with our reality. We're not at war with our reality. Ever tried that in one? It doesn't work so well. So a harmonious perspective, understanding, or view of how things are, it really, first of all, it includes the first three noble truths, that there basically just is unsatisfactoriness. We live in a world that, there's physical ailments and old age, sickness, death. There's the suffering and the pain, the unsatisfactoriness that the things that we do like and are that we find beautiful are temporary, and they vanish after a while. And the things that we maybe find really unpleasant and we don't like, we're associated with sometimes for the rest of our lives. I've got tinnitus, I've got a ringing in my ears, and I'll have that. I've had that for the last 20 years or so, and I reckon I've got that for the rest of my life. Fortunately, I've come to some kind of peace and accord with it. Do I wish it wasn't there? Sure, but it is. And I also recognize, if it wasn't that, it's something else. Whatever. So, you understanding that there simply is unsatisfactoriness. The word dukkha literally means du is an axle and ka means a bad fit. So it's a wheel, an axle that fits into a wheel with a bad fit. So the ride is very bumpy from it. And we've kind of got these lives that, with all of their beauties and joys, also have some pretty bumpy times. So there's unsatisfactory. That's the first truth. But real, actual suffering happens when we try to escape that unsatisfactoriness. And we do that, by the way, via the kilesas of, okay, if I'm going to, if I'm going to stay away from pain, I want to get more of what I like. So that's greed, and that's kind of a movement towards what I like. And or John was calling it attachment. And if I'm going to keep myself away from what I don't like, I'm going to I'm going to push it away. I'm going to be averse to it. I'm going to hate it. Get rid of it. Send it away. Do what I can. And so we're constantly leading our lives in sort of a leaning forward and a leaning back, whether we notice it or not. With practice, we get to see in fine-grained detail how much that energy is active within just the state of our attention, and how stressful it is, how it causes so much struggle. And this really all rests on an underlying confusion, an underlying delusion or misapprehension. And that was the first of the kilesas. Without that, greed and hatred don't exist. But if we are confused as to how things are, then, I'll just go into this quickly. Basically, you were born, and there was no concept when you were a young infant of you being separate from anything. You were just born and alive and free in the world, and then something scary or painful happened, and you contracted so much that, and there's been a lot of times where, scary, painful things happen, you contract and you let go. But at some point, something scary and painful enough happens, there's a contraction, and the contraction doesn't let all the way go. It gets stuck. The energy or the shock of that gets stuck in your body. And the message, that pre-verbal message, is that protection is needed. So this is the birth of fear and the birth of ignorance, because we begin, if protection is needed, there's a me in here that needs protection from that out there. And how am I going to protect myself? By getting more of what I like and keeping away what I don't like. On top of delusion, there's greed and there's hatred. And these are the three rolling forward on the wheel of life over and over and over again. So real suffering is caused by this trying to escape, by the delusion, by the greed and the hatred that are the strategies of the delusion, of the ignorance. And this is so deeply ingrained. It's our first concept that we ever developed And it's how we've organized and oriented to our lives until maybe we meet practice. And so you might think that, good Lord, how could I ever, once I recognize that this is a trap, how could I ever get out of the trap? And that's the third noble truth of Buddhism, is that there is relief from these strategies. There is relief from these hardwired default activities. Um, and it happens, the fourth truth, it happens through the Eightfold Noble Path, which is what we're exploring. So, right view brings you back to, or harmonious understanding, perspective, brings you back to understanding those first three elements. And also that our actions have results. So we need to be mindful of our actions. So when we understand what's going on, when we have that understanding, that then can take us to the next aspect of this noble path. And, having a wise understanding actually helps us to sort of begin to see through that underlying confusion. That's more of it's more of like a cloudiness. It's like an obscuration of a of how things are, and the truth that this is a whole doing itself, and the fact of saying this is me here and that out there is a designation. It might have some uses, but at the end of the day, if we stop at that and don't recognize our fundamental immersion and fluidity, and connectivity, immersion with all, we're out of the flow of peace and well-being. So, so this leads to the next aspect of the Eightfold Noble Path, and that's having a harmonious resolve or intention or motivation or aspiration, for practice itself, for waking up, for getting off of this cycle of struggle and stress. And so delusion is sort of like a cloud, and our understanding as we continue to meet experience with presence and mindfulness, the delusion, the separateness begins to thin out, and our connection begins to become more apparent. Greed and hatred are different. There's an active aspect to them. So when we feel greed or hatred, it's appropriate to take a little bit of action there. And that's where, if I'm feeling greed, I might reflect on generosity. How cool would it feel to not need what I'm being greedy for? Hatred or aversion, the antidote to that is thoughts of loving kindness. So when you think and you get caught up in the events of the world or your busyness, and you go, I just want this to stop. Please, can this just stop? Recognize this is aversion that's happening. How can you be kind to yourself? What can you do to nourish and support yourself in this moment? Is there something to learn from this moment? Can this moment be embraced and actually befriended? And we're not saying that it's good or right or whatever, but is it the manure for the compost of awakening, as Chogyam Trungpa would say? If there's a sense of greed, I want more safety, I want more safety, is that something we can look at and just in a sense step back and have that sense of compassion, or a sense of giving ourselves, a generosity to ourselves, of stepping off the cycle, giving ourselves a break in some way. Do I have a cup of tea? Do I connect with a dear friend? Uh, what can be supportive? How can we be generous to ourselves? So um, I'll end with just saying, bringing in the Brahma Viharas for yourself, bringing in that sense of karuna, a hand on the heart, loving kindness, a radiance, a friendliness to experience, equanimity, even though I would wish otherwise. This is what it is, and it ultimately does lead to awakening. Things are as they are. And then maybe just, deriving joy from our practice, from our community. Um, the other aspects of the Eightfold Noble Path really are divided 3 and 3 into the right effort of just keeping on with our practice. Can we maintain this intention and not be too tight or too loose, so that meditation becomes easier and more stable? And then we begin to collect ourselves into relaxation and an ongoing presence. And to support that, there's the 3 aspects of non harming in speech or action or livelihood, that helps the mind to settle in and enables us again to feel these aspects of the heart: loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity. So that's what I have to share today. We've got a couple of minutes for some questions and or anything you'd like to share about what you've heard
Hi,
or
Bruce. This is
anything
this is
else.
Jen. Hi, everybody.
Hey,
I'm gonna just see if anyone in our immediate hall has a question, and we like to use the mic so then the other people on Zoom can hear what we're saying. Any questions live? Great. This is coming to you. And say your name and then speak closely.
Hi, this is Douglas.
hey,
Hey, Bruce. I just wanted to say hi, greetings, and I love you. I love the way you speak. Thank you for sharing what you did tonight.
mm, thank you, Douglas. So good to hear your voice. And so I'm feeling mudita and joy. Mood Douglas.
Great. Is
Love
there
you too,
anyone
Douglas. Yeah, please.
and anyone on Zoom that has a question or an exclamation? Anyone live?
So this is
So,
Philip.
Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
So Bruce, I just want to say, first of all, I want to echo what Douglas said. And I'm just going to put this out there. I just wish you'd teach more often. I always get excited when you're going to be our Monday night teacher. Just totally reiterate what Douglas said. You really bring the Dharma alive. So thank you very much. I really love you and love what you bring.
Thank you. Right back at you. Thank you, Philip. Always good to see you.
okay, I'm going to pass the mic here in the meditation hall.
Please.
Hey, Bruce, it's Robert, and I echo what Philip said. I love it when you teach. Thank you.
Thank you.
You started tonight about being a New York Times junkie. And, I get it. Life has suffering in it. But for me, it just seems like I'm banging myself over the head with the news. And, sometimes I feel like if I just sat on my rock in my backyard, there'd be a heck of a lot less suffering. So the question is, in the context of your talk tonight, where does that come in? Like, the banging myself over the head with. I could be doing some of these practices that you're talking about, root down, that kind of thing. But instead I grab my phone and, doom scroll. What's up with that?
Well, one of the things about these devices, here it is right next to me. Good Lord, I didn't even turn it off. Thank God I'm unpopular. And it didn't go off. But the deal with these dudes is that they change your nervous system. I gotta tell you, this is crazy. I go to the toilet and sit down and pick the darn thing up, and so I'm really realizing, first of all, that these change your neurology, and they've been noticing that a lot of mental health issues have coincided with with these coming on the scene, especially for younger people. So just to acknowledge the challenge of these devices and how neurologically wired in they are, and yeah, it's a practice to have good digital hygiene. So that's one thing. There's the news aspect, and I realize that a lot of times I get on the news and I'm kind of keeping score. Like, how's my side doing? And it's really a practice to, you know, come back and, overall, it's the aspect of equanimity, and then just the noticing the movement of the heart as you engage with the news and the events of our world. Is there compassion? In some cases, there's uplifting stories. I wish there were more of them. And there's joy or mudita, gratitude. A lot of times there's compassion, and a lot of times I need the equanimity. And can there be sort of a friendliness to that? Especially what I find, when we do the practices of the Brahma Viharas, we'll do that for ourselves, for a dear one, a for a benefactor, but also then moving out into more challenging territory for a neutral stranger, maybe somebody we see at the post office or supermarket, or in our neighborhood, but don't have a connection with, other than we recognize them. And then, there's friendliness to even a difficult person, or a difficult circumstance. And that is where the rubber meets the road. We may not condone what's happening, but can we have an inclusivity for it? So I'll say that the Brahma Viharas can be a big support as you engage the news. Last thing I'll say is that it is absolutely it's absolutely appropriate and fundamentally important that you give yourself a break. And that's why I haven't gone on retreat or long retreat in way too long of a period of time. And I see how my system needs that desperately. But it doesn't have to be, a month-long retreat or something like that. It can be, I've got a hammock here in between two sugar maples, and getting on that hammock is a powerful retreat. So, mini retreat. So, thank you all for your reflections. I hope that was a little bit of help, Robert. I am going to have to wind it up and do a very quick metta, so we can have the Jen and crew shower you with the blessings of notifications about our community. So just closing your eyes for another moment, and I'm going to ask you, invite you to place a hand on your chest if that feels, over your heart space, if that feels okay and safe. And just to feel the presence of your heart in its naked simplicity. including your hand, including yourself, including this community. The sense of radiance and warmth that we share with each other, these beautiful teachings, this beautiful gift of each other, and then allowing that to extend out. It really doesn't have a boundary. And like the sun, when it shines upon all beings and all things equally, whether they may be doing harmful things, whether they may have confused or harmful views. But there's this inclusiveness and friendliness. May we, with our practice, be able to include ourselves, each other, and our world in a heart that the world so dearly needs to feel. With this simple wish, may all beings everywhere be truly, truly happy. And if there's been any merit that we've generated in our time together today, may that be shared freely with all that is for the benefit, well-being, and awakening of all beings everywhere. Om. May you be well, and thank you so much for your kindness and your practice, your attention, and your sincerity.